Hey, welcome to Fire Engineering's Humpday Hangout, to our show, the issues and challenges of today's fire service. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my very good friend and Humpday Hangout co-host, Louisville Assistant Chief Terry McGrath. And we've got another great show for you today with an awesome guest. As a reminder, we shoot this out to you all the time. If you have any questions, head over to Twitter and send them our way. Make sure you add hashtag FE Talk. All right. And T, today our topic is centered around mentors and those who consistently make a difference in the lives of others. And there are very few people who do that very thing, like Captain Mike Dugan. Welcome, brother Mike.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Hey, before we get started, and I think I know Terry, both of us want to mention this, and I know you do, Mike. To our listeners, to our viewers, FDIC is just around the corner. Any information you're looking for, all you got to do is go to FDIC.com, start sign up for the hands-on training, the sessions, the workshops. They fill up fast. And make sure you start picking your classes. There's no signing up for the general session classes, but Mike, you've had it happen. They fill out, when you guys teach, when they're out of chairs, they close the doors because we don't want to violate any codes or nothing. And we've had some, rooms fill up pretty quick, folks. So make sure you're signing up for your Monday and Tuesday classes, the pre-conference workshops and hands-on training, and then start marking off those classes you want to go to, and then beat feet after opening ceremonies both day, so we can get you there. But Mike, what are you teaching at FDIC this year?
I will be teaching a workshop on how to give a company drill and leave them wanting more. It's something I put together for newly officers, drills in a can, how you go to your strength and how you have something that if you go to a new place and you're there for a day, how you can have a drill. And it's how officers can handle a drill, because one of the hardest things for a lot of people is teaching other people.
It is. It's absolutely, well. What they say, it's like the biggest fear, getting up and talking in front of people or teaching, especially in our business because we're so critical of each other. But hey, and Mike, I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but again, for our viewers, Terry, I want to make sure we introduce a little bit, because we don't want to take too much away from some of the things we want to ask you, brother. But Captain Mike Dugan is retired from the FDNY, but served with the FDNY for 27 years. His last assignment as the captain of Ladder Company 123 in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Lieutenant, Ladder Company 42 in the South Bronx before that. Firefighter Ladder 43 in Spanish Harlem. Get to a couple other highlights I wanted to get with you. And Mike, you also were a volunteer too, were you,
Yep.
during that or before that?
Yep. Yes, I was. I was a volunteer in the Hale Site Volunteer Fire Department. I started there when I turned 18 in 1973.
Holy God, 47 years in the fire service, and you look young, dude. You're like Dick Clark. Well, alive Dick Clark, I should say. I know he's dead now, but all those years, the
Yep. Yep.
guy never aged. But and then Mike, I know we're going to talk a little bit about family later, but you're married to your best friend, and you have two daughters,
Yep.
Sarah and Emily. Talk a little bit about them, where they're at right now.
Emily just left. She's going to work. She's back in college to get her master's in social work for children with special needs. So
Oh,
she
very cool.
loves working with kids with special needs, and she's back in school doing that. And she just went to work. She watches a disabled young lady and helps her family with her. And then she also works in a special a class. What would I call it? She works in something called youth court in our local town. And what it is it's through the school. Kids who get in trouble in school, she goes in there as a social worker and tries to get them to do certain things so that they end up without a criminal record. If they don't do what's mandated by the youth court, then they go into family court and they end up with a record. So it's
Okay.
going to be an intervention and help these kids. And it's really it's something she likes doing, but she has to intake these kids who have problems in school. And it's kind of eye opening for my daughter growing up in our neighborhood in the civil service area, seeing how some families are dysfunctional. So that's my Emily. So she's doing good. And my Sarah is down in outside of DC in Virginia as a seventh grade English teacher.
No, so go figure. So you look at the Dugan kids, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Mikey, when it comes to helping people and making a difference, buddy. So
Yep.
obviously, mom and dad did a great job with everything. But
I
oh my,
tell you
well,
what, Chief, you listen to what his daughters are doing, and I could easily say that Mike has one of the most challenging careers or histories dealing with firefighters all day. But you know that's quite an impressive family resume right there with everything your family's got on their plate. And my hats off to both of your daughters
well, and he's done
for
so good, Terry. You've got a daughter. You've got a son and a daughter. I mean, Mike, two daughters. I've got one. I love my daughter. She's my life. But oh my God, two daughters, and you still look so great, Mike.
yeah.
You still look so young.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, you got your hair. There's nothing gray there. There's
There's not much hair there. There's not much hair there. But
Well, hey, Mikey. Hey, first of all, before we go any further, congratulations, brother. You're one of my very very good friends, and congratulations on being this year's recipient of the Tom Brennan Lifetime Achievement Award at FDIC for Fire Engineering. And I know you and I are both, as Terry would say, we're both like time bombs of tears. I mean, we cry watching Andy Griffith. You know what I'm saying, the show. And but I was there when Chief Halton, when Bobby Halton made the announcement at the advisory board meeting, and I got emotional. I know it had to be emotional for you. I mean, 47 years, but and I know, and I will say this to our viewers. I do more bragging on Mike Dugan than Mike Dugan will ever say about Mike Dugan, and I have to, because Mike, you're a modest guy. Yeah, that's, I love you, but the emotions. I mean, I mean, it's got to feel great. I'll say, to be recognized for everything you've done, but um, I just think it's awesome, buddy. Congratulations.
I appreciate that, Rick. I think it's an honor. It's a huge honor. I still wonder something if somebody didn't make a mistake. But it's a huge honor. What is so nice about it is, as someone like yourself, where we teach, where we go out into the community and teach, to realize that people are listening, that people are paying attention, that you are making a difference. And I think that is an amazing thing. The other thing about it is it's the names that are attached to it are amazing. And I mean, you look at the peppers. You're a lifetime award winner. Look at all the names who were attached who went before us.
Oh, it's overwhelming, isn't it?
It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming just to be thought of in the same breath, to be spoken of with those names. Alan Brunacini, John Norman, Vinnie Dunn. I can't even, the names are just, they're iconic members of the fire service. And I know you, and I've known you for a long, long time. And very honestly, I don't think you and I think of ourselves in that same vein. And maybe it is being humble, maybe it's being humility. But very honestly, I feel it's overwhelming, but it's also scary, because now it's like the people who you've read about, the people who have won the Medal of Honor. And they always say it's a lot harder wearing it than it is winning it. And that's kind of the things that scare me.
Well, and you said it, Mike. I know when it happened for me, I walked out in the hallway. I had to. I just walked out of the room because I was crying like a baby, and I'm like, and I was overwhelmed because it's just what you said. It wasn't about, oh, look at what I got. I started thinking of all those people, all those incredible. You and I brag on mentors. We'll get to mentoring a little bit, Terry. I want to talk about that, but we brag about our mentors all the time, and people. And you said something, Terry. You and I've talked about this a bunch of times on. Well, actually, we talked about this away from the show after we've had certain guests. Um, but Mike, I want to mention, we've talked about the fact you mentioned teaching. There are those that go out like yourself and teach and share with everybody, and there's those that go out and talk to people. And I think there's a big difference between those like yourself that go out with your heart that want to make a difference in the lives of others, and those that go out there, you know what I'm saying? There's some that just go out there and they do more talking about themselves and more promoting about themselves, and it's about themselves, and it's not about yourself. It's the guys. We even did a show, Mike, about humble, and honored. And I, you see it on social media all the time, where somebody will, they'll stand there with it, take a picture. I have no problem. Look, if local, whatever IFF local gives me a helmet, makes I love bragging. Hey, thanks so much. I'm honored. But when you say, look, I can't believe I'm so humble and honored that the XYZ um, Lions Club gave me this pen I got for speaking at their leadership talk in the afternoon luncheon. I don't know how you do that and attach the word humble to it. And I think those are some of the guys that are out there that actually talk to the audience. But you teach to them, Mike. I think the connection with the students I've seen over the years is they feel like they could talk to you about anything and that you're actually listening to them. And I think that's
Well,
just something.
hold
Go
on.
ahead, Terry.
I got to jump in here because both of you guys are so full of crap. Mike Dugan, I've never met you, but I know who you are, and I know probably way more about a grown man than a grown man should, being that I don't even know you. But you guys, both of you, and I'll say this to both of you, and I think that when you mention the names like Brunacini and Bobby Halton, you guys touch people every single day, and it is, Chief Lasky, I've said this about you a million times, is that you are more passionate about the fire service than I've seen anyone passionate about anything. Now, you could argue whether that's healthy, you can argue whether that's normal, you can argue whatever you want to argue, but I'm telling you, the fruits of what you guys do and the amount of people, the outreach you have, the impact you have, and the fact that people, when you get up in front of a group, you are so well respected and deservedly so, but people listen to what you have to say, and that carries on, and they will pass that information on. The awards, the accolades that both of you have won, and I get it. No one wants to sit here and say it is not about me. This is about the fire service and the next guy coming. The fact that you've chosen to sink your heart and your blood and your sweat into each program that you do, into each lecture you do. I don't think, I would hope at the end of the day, you guys truly, truly understand the outreach and the impact that you have on a guy that's been in the business 33 years or a guy that's been in the business for 3 years, because you do, and it's all of this is well deserved.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for that, buddy, and it's appreciated, buddy. Thank you for that. But my, and I was just saying it a second ago. It's just Mike, and Terry just mentioned it too. Is I just love watching you at the hallway at FDIC when we're at a conference together and young firefighters coming up and talking to you. Because again, I'll just say it. I've watched other instructors that they either don't have the time or it's more about doing this, and these firefighters just swarm you because you're who you are, and I'll just say it, and you're the respect and admiration, but they're like they know they can talk to you, they know they can, and I just think that's something, Mikey, that just God bless you, and I don't want to keep embarrassing you with stuff, but let me ask you this real quick before we move topics here. Um, I mentioned the advisory board, and I want to do this before we moved away too much from the beginning here. You've been on the advisory board a long time for FDIC International. That's for our listeners. That's where we talk about who's going to give keynotes. We talk about different topics. We talk about hot. We talk about classroom. We talk about the whole conference, the goods, the bads, what we need to improve, and we work very hard. Class reviews, submissions to pick the classes. Mike, what would you say? Two things. What's the hardest part about being on that advisory board, and then what advice would you have for a maybe a new or someone that's been submitting, trying to get to teach program there?
Well, I think the hardest part is looking at reviewing the courses before. We have to do a review before we go to the meeting. and we have to grade the proposals. And very honestly, reading over these proposals that people want to teach, it's humbling to see what people are out there and their message. But what I say about that is we are blessed to be able to look at these things. What I'm going to tell people who want to be at FDIC, write something for the magazine. Give your class locally at your department, at a neighboring department, in your local area. Polish it. Because very honestly, the first time I got to the big show and spoke at FDIC, my hour and 45-minute class probably lasted an hour and 25 minutes because I was so nervous. I was speaking way too fast. I was going crazy. I was like, blah, 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 and I I wasn't as well prepared as I probably should have been. And I got through it and I kept doing more and they kept asking me back. But very honestly, when you want to do this, when you want to put on a class at FDIC, put together a topic that you know of. Don't take and steal a class from somebody else. Don't do pride and ownership. I would never do pride and ownership. That's not my gig. That's Rick's gig. I would never do some of the other things that are out there that other people are doing. Get Out Alive was John Salka's. You don't do somebody else's class. If they give you the information to teach the class, teach it locally. That's fine. But don't next year put in to teach it at FDIC when you got it from this guy. And do something that you are knowledgeable, good at. If you put in for high-rise fires and you live in my hometown out on Long Island of East Northport, where the tallest building is probably 5 or 6 stories, you're probably not going to be an expert in high-rise fires. And I'm going to look at that. I have friends who are out in Nebraska. They're doing grain bin. Well, guess what? They go to more grain bins. I've never been to a grain bin, fire or entrapment, and they lose people in these things all the time. Do what you know, do what you're good at, and then become good at doing it and write an article about it for the magazine or the website. Get yourself published because then it makes it harder for you to be ignored.
No, and I like the whole patience thing and teaching us something, um, and write an article. And I've told plenty of people, Mike, in my time, read the magazine, look at the classes. If you want to come in and do uh, store fires, well, you're not going to beat Chief John Norman, out when it comes. You might be able to do a different version, but pick something that like you said, you're comfortable with. But you know, eh, no, I think, like you said, know your topic and have experience in it. And I've said before, when I see a God bless 4 or 5 year firefighter, no, the future of the fire service that wants to do a leadership class either to company officers or to chiefs. And usually you and I have both seen those. I'm like, unless you've ridden the front seat, unless you've been a chief officer, kind of hard to teach on those topics, but
But you know what, Chief? And getting back to, kind of when I was paying homage to both of you, but I think that's something that sometimes people don't understand is the amount of work that goes in, the preparation that goes in to when you're talking about figuring out the topic and presenting the information in a valuable and in a manner that people are going to walk out of there and you have that impact, you have that change, you got people to leave that room and to start thinking about what it is they're doing and how they're doing it or whatever. That's what sets you guys apart because it's not a I got up one morning and thought, you know what, I'm gonna talk about 2.5 today. There's a lot of preparation that goes into this. I've seen you work at it, Chief. I've seen you lecture time and time again. You're polished, you're good, but it's like anything else. That put the time in and the product will show at the end. That is something I think that gets back to that passion and people who commit themselves to a calling, which I think that there are that 30 people in this business that have. And that's what I'm saying. When they get up and say something, you listen because I know that it's not off the cuff and it's not just this, well, I'm going to tell a story. what they're telling you. It's research, it's vetted, and that's that's what I think. That's what I think, Mike. When I listen to you talk about subjects and the things that you say, but there's there's preparation. There's it The Patriots are good and they're really good, but they put a lot of time and effort into making themselves good.
Well, and you're right. You're exactly right, Terry. And Mike said it. Have some experience with it. Write about it. Um, and Mike, you and I both talked about this a bunch of times. Don't put in a submission. That's where Terry. But part of where Terry was going with that point, which was great, is FDIC shouldn't be your first. I know I look for it when it says, "Have you ever taught this class before?" And where have you ever taught FDIC before? And I see no and no, and I'm like, unless it's a case study where something big happened in your community, and you want to, like we want to hear about it. I don't think the biggest show, uh, it should be the one where you should be. We're not going to be your test pilot or your guinea pig for it. I think you need to have some experience behind it.
I agree wholeheartedly, Rick. And I also think, because I have been and I have seen other instructors and I have gone to classes and I see guys out there, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we don't need this slide. We don't need this slide. We don't need this slide. We don't need that slide. It drives me crazy because you did not preset your class to this department. One of the other things I love to do, if I'm going out to a local department, I go locally and take some pictures and put their buildings in my PowerPoints. Or I have somebody send me some pictures from where I'm going. Can you send me some pictures of some of your buildings? And I'll put them in my PowerPoints. And they're like, whoa, I know that building. I know that place. And it personalizes it to them. Excuse me. I also save all of my PowerPoints that I do. If I go to your hometown and I do a PowerPoint, I put it in a folder for that department on that day and I save it. And now someone says, I was at that class and I want a similar class to that, but from my hometown. Okay, send me some pictures. Now I know exactly what I did, and I saved that on an external hard drive. So I know where I'm going. And the other thing is, you have to go through the PowerPoint. You have to know your PowerPoint. You have to be aware of what's coming next. If you're up there reading off the slides, death by PowerPoint is probably the most horrific way to die. Okay. And I am a motivated individual. I love learning. I love reading. I love being in a class. But if someone is standing there and talking in a monotone voice and reading the slide, and now we're going to take the 2.5-inch line, and they're reading off the thing, and we're going to go up to the front door of the barn, force entry, and I'm like, oh my goodness, please.
Well, and the PowerPoint should be the enhancer, right? And I love it where you get to a point as you're talking, I'm clicking and the slides are changing. I know what's behind me without even looking because they're enhancers, they're not the presentation.
They're right. They're keys to what you want to talk about. All they are is, this is where I want to hit there. This is where I want to hit there. If you put all of the stuff you want to say on that PowerPoint, you're going to kill the students. If you want to talk about construction, VES, it doesn't matter what you call it, doesn't matter where you want to go. If that's what you're going to talk about, just have that out there and then talk about it. If you're going to talk about portable ladders, have a picture of a portable ladder and talk about it. But do not put everything you want to say on the slide. Practice, practice, practice. It's that old 10,000 hours. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. How do you get anywhere? Practice. Do it. Practice it. Go see other people do it and see what they did. Listen, I'll be very honest with everyone out in the world. I have stolen pieces from all of the instructors I have ever taken a class from. What I want to do, what I don't want to do. Where I want to go, what I don't want to do. What I want to say, what I don't want to say. Okay? And how I want to do that. And it's very important that the students interact with you. The other thing that I can't do is stand behind a podium and just, I got to move. And it helps. If you are an instructor and you move, the students' eyes have to follow you. So it helps keep them motivated to see what's going on. It's just every good teacher moves. Okay. Reading from a lectern is just difficult. So get, try it, practice it, get good at it, know your subject. And it's happening because, very honestly, a lot of us are getting older, and we're going to be passing the baton. I'm going to be passing
Exactly.
the baton. Okay. I'm trying to get my wife to retire. She doesn't want to retire. I'm like, retire, please. And she's like, no, no, no. I want to stay.
Well, and we are. We're always looking for that next. That's. I know as instructors and as FDIC, we're always looking for the future. To try and find who's the next, and the next, and the next.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree with you. And Terry, have you noticed how good Mike is about diverting the attention away from him?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Isn't he?
Hey, hold on a second, because Jerry Wells stopped in my office before we started today, because he always comes in and asks me what we're going to talk about. So when I told him, of course, he starts rattling off. But he did tell me a story, Mike, about that he was with you at a table, I think, at FDIC, and you were going through your evaluations after classes, and I think Jerry asked you the question. Jerry Wells, one of our battalion chiefs down here, he asked you the question about, were you nervous the first time you did this or whatever? Anyway, you told him a story about your bubbas from the firehouse, maybe, or something, came in your class and sat in the front row and
Yeah.
did something to distract you. That's probably not appropriate for all audiences, but anyway.
No, they
Who's got your back on?
something that I shouldn't have seen. It threw me up, and I was like,
Yeah.
I was looking down, but it was they. Yes.
Yeah, who's got your back on that one?
Right.
Hey,
Exactly.
so I'm a fact checker when it comes to the internet, because believe it or not everything is true. But is that you?
That is me
All right.
on 9/11. But
Yep.
the amazing thing is the guy holding the ladder.
Yeah.
Look at the guy holding the ladder. His name, and I'm not deflecting because that man should be known by everyone. That man's name is Chris Engeldrum, the drum. Chris was killed by an IED in Iraq, and he was our first member since World War II, because Korea and Vietnam were all young guys, since World War II, to die in the in service to our country. KIA was Chris Engeldrum, and since then we have lost 4 more.
Yeah, and I knew exactly, because you and I have talked about that very. And Terry, I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, and Mike, you helped. Your contribution helping us by signing one of those photos, and I know where that one came from, by the way. Thank you, and for to help us do a fundraiser for a volunteer department. But everything's still burning behind you. Everything's still down. It's all fresh. It's new, and that's the patriot you are, you and your guys. And uh, it's just it's an amazing photo. I know it was on the cover of was it Reader's Digest? Was it? And I know they did a poster.
News and World Report.
Yeah, it was all over the place. So yes, to our viewers, Terry, I'm glad you brought that up. That is Captain Mike Dugan, hanging that flag from that.
And you have, Mike, you have said, and I've listened to or watched most of everything you've done on the Humpday Hangouts, but you made the comment one time that one of your favorite activities at FDIC is the stair climb and to shake everybody's hand. Yes. And so when knowing that, and then seeing this, and obviously listening and the passion and the commitment and all the things we've talked about. So yeah, you're a special human being. I'll tell you that.
Well, I appreciate that, Terry. And just so everybody knows, because I have to be up front, getting the Lifetime Achievement Award, my wife and daughters are coming out this year. I am going to miss the stair climb this year because I have to get them all back home. So unfortunately, family does come first. But I have told people I want them to go take my place. And I've got a couple of guys who are going to go there and take my place and do it for me. And it started out real easy. The first stair climb at FDIC was 96 people. The last one was over 1,000. That's a lot of hands to shake. And let me tell you, you got to take your rings off. Got to make sure you don't have your rings on.
You're not even running for office.
Nope.
Well, Mike, walk us back. We mentioned, had you mentioned, being a volunteer, and I briefly skimmed through the companies that you worked with in New York City. so your first company was that Ladder 43 in Spanish Harlem, or were you somewhere else before that, out of the academy?
Out of the academy, I was somewhere else. I was
Okay.
in ladder 137 in Rockaway Beach, Queens,
Okay.
for 6 months. I was a probie. I got sent there. I was the valedictorian of my fire class of 150 guys,
Wow.
and they sent me to the second slowest truck in the city. And I missed my first run on the FDNY because the junior man used to have to walk out of the firehouse, through a parking lot, through a gate in the fence, past the subway yard, and to the supermarket to get the meal, because the firehouse's nickname back then was the Washed Up Brothers on the Beach. And there were great firemen from busy companies all over the city who were in the retirement years. In the engine, the junior man used to get the nozzle. I was working one night, the nozzle man had 36 years. Okay? 36 years. I was like, holy mackerel. I mean, there was like, it was crazy. Anyway, I was there and I was like, please, I want to be a fireman. I got to go someplace. I got to go to runs. I mean, I could go 24 hours without a run. So, as a probie, without a request for transfer in, I was transferred while on my honeymoon to ladder 43. And I didn't know anything about the place. I got a call from the chief of department's office telling me that's where they were putting me. I did not know that the chief of department was best friends with the captain of that company.
Oh.
And that's why I went there. And I walked in the door, and every guy in that firehouse knew all about me. I'm like, okay. Well, they knew everything because I was what they call a contract. They got two guys they wanted across the floor from the engine, and they got me. And I was unexpected. And they were like, yep, you'll get your guys, but we got to give you one more. And that's where I learned how to be a fireman. That's ladder 43. My first captain, his name was Danny Marshall. Danny Marshall is still a hero of mine. He's long gone, but Danny Marshall was my first captain, and he always let you know what he expected, what he wanted. He would teach you, he would show you, he would help you, and he was just the best. He was a great fire officer, and I loved him. And unfortunately, he died in a plane crash.
Oh.
Captain Dan, after 30 years on the fire department, died in a plane on fire. Can't make it up.
Oh.
Yep.
Golly. Well, I mean, just and we've talked so many times on this show and in our classes about our mentors and those who've had a and we love I like that's what I love about you, and Terry does it and I do it, and my buddy John, so we all do. All the good guys, I say, all the people I hang with, all love bragging about those that have had an impact in our lives. And I love the passion, the way you talk about him, because that, obviously he means so much to you, just like my Lieutenant Bill Allen did, and to some other people. Now, um, while with Ladder 43 in Spanish Harlem, is that in 1992 when you received the James Gore Bennett Medal?
Yeah,
And for our viewers, that is and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm all positive, Mike, right? That's the highest award for valor that's presented by the New York City Fire Department, correct?
that's presented every year. The James
And
Gordon.
would you be willing to share with us? I took a picture with you and my friend Bobby Hoff. Bobby's a two-time Carter Harrison Lambert Tree recipient in Chicago, which is their highest award for valor. You received that award and later on the Harry M. Archer Medal in '93, a year later, but we'll talk about that too. But and I took the picture with you too, and I said, I'm the one that's going to have to say this because neither one of these guys who are my heroes would say this. But would you share with our viewers the incident that led up to you being written up for that and receiving the highest award for valor in New York City issues?
Sure. It was December 23rd, 1991. Yep, 1991. And I was working a day tour. And back then, we had a lot of guys in the company because good companies had a lot of guys. And I was sent out to drive somewhere else. So I come back to the firehouse to drop off my gear. And they're like, Oh, you're here? You want to work tonight? No, not really. It's a night tour of overtime. We need somebody. You can't go home. Okay. All right. I'll do it. Well, ladder 43. So I go, okay, I got to do it. I got to do it. So I did it. So in ladder 43, the junior man makes up the riding list for the tour, and he goes by seniority. So you always have the chauffeur. He's got to be a trained chauffeur, and then the senior man gets his pick of spots where he wants to ride on the rig. Then it goes down to the junior man. So I'm there. There's a regular chauffeur, and then I'm the next senior man. And they go, "We gave you the roof." The roof is not the funnest part to be. You usually wanted the irons, the can, or the OV because they're both going in the fire department. The roof is going up to the roof. And I looked at the guys and I said, "But I'm not." And he goes, "I know. We wrote it thinking we were getting somebody from another firehouse that didn't come. So you mind taking the roof?" And I'm like, "No, I'll do that." Okay. And they go, "And by the way, you're cooking tonight because there's no other cooks in the fire." And I'm like, "All right, let's get everybody on the rig and we'll go get a meal." Okay. So we're getting on the rig, getting ready to go, and a box comes in around the corner from the firehouse. We used to call it Little Mexico. I was in Spanish Harlem, but we called that block Little Mexico because it was all Mexican immigrants. And we got a pretty good job. It's 2 days before Christmas. Unfortunately, it was a Christmas tree fire in the apartment. The father of these two children who passed made an unbelievable move trying to get down the hallway to get to his kids. And I mean, he was burnt horrifically. And then I'm up on the roof and I look over the back and there's a guy standing outside the window on the windowsill with fire lapping up to him, ready to jump. And I'm like, "Stay there." And somebody says, "He doesn't speak English." I said, "Tell him to stay there." And I had my rope. So I went and I popped the bulkhead door, letting the smoke come out of the bulkhead because the place was charged. The smoke was pushing over his head. He happened to have been in the bathroom. He was in the shower, came out of the shower, went into his room. When his roommates left, they left the front door of the apartment open. So he was in
Oh, wow.
world deep. So it was on an angle. So there was the roof of the building. The tie off was here. I had to go over up here. So a guy from ladder 26 lowered me, and another guy sat on the roof and held the rope with his body weight so I could go on the angle. And I had to go down, get this guy. When I got him, he jumped at me. So I caught this guy. Thank God he was small. And I know his name. I don't know why, but it was Pablo Martinez. I grabbed this 22-year-old kid, and I'm holding him baby style now going down, and in the back of the building, it's 7 stories. We go past the fire, get down, and we get off the thing. I go outside, and they go, "You got to go in the ambulance." And I'm shaking like, going
Oh,
over
God.
the building. Yeah. I get into the ambulance, and all of a sudden, I see the mother and the father coming to these two kids. Now, I heard that the kids weren't doing well, but I didn't know how bad they were. And I looked at me, and I looked at the medic who was in the ambulance, and I said, "I'll go sit on the sidewalk, take care of this guy." And the medic said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, he's in worse shape than I am." So they picked the dad up, put him in the ambulance, took him to the burn center. And I get in another ambulance and I'm sitting there and they're taking me to the hospital and they want to get blood gases because I had taken a feed going past the fire and everything else. And I don't know if you've ever had blood gases, but they put that needle in the back of your hand. The guy's looks at me and like, "Relax." And I looked at him and I said, "I am." And I used a couple of choice words, "Relax." He said, "We'll do this later. We'll do this later. Thank you." So that's pretty much what happened. And again, I like to think about other people. That medic came to find me and he said, "That was the most humane thing I have ever seen done by someone, getting out of that ambulance for that guy who had just lost his two kids." And that was worth more to me than the medal was just about.
Well, and just the fact that you thought of that, Mike. I mean, I think a lot of people, they're in the back of the rig. Like you said, they're like, whatever it is, that whether they're like this, whether it was themselves or a firefighter, And one of the last things you think of is, you just, and it's not that you're rude or you're selfish. You just don't think of it. For you to go through that and have the presence of mind to say, take him, not me, I'll go next. That kind of thing. That's golly, that's something you read about the stories, um, in combat and in Vietnam and Afghanistan of Marines and soldiers and say, these guys that just say, no, no, take them first. Um, and I'm glad you shared that because and explained what happened because like I said I I do I you're just a humble guy and it's not something look at me what I do that it's just something in the course of being a firefighter you did that was absolutely extraordinary. Um, and I can't like you said shaken. I would have been doing other things too. I'd have been doing other things beyond shaken if it was me. Just what a credible story, Mike. And uh, it it doesn't surprise me that you got an ambulance like that and did that. So it doesn't. So,
And very honestly, my wife was pregnant at the time with my first kid. And then we went to a thing where they told her, she was still pregnant at the time, what I did. And I've got fingernails gripping into my hands. And she's like, "You're not going to do that again, are you?" Because they said, to win a class one, you have to put your life at extreme personal risk. So,
well, and look, here's another story. It's like our good friend Mickey Convoy with the big rescue.
yep.
He's off duty. His wife's friend says, "Come look at this firefighter hanging from this rope. Now in this window with this lady." And she's like, "Of course, here you're supposed to be going home, and you get mandatoried." And just, I think that's where God, Terry, you and I've talked about this, where things happen that are beyond our control. Where you know, look at all the things that had to happen.
Mhm.
Not that another firefighter may have done the same thing, but there's a reason why Mike Dugan was there and performing that rescue. Everything was set up. All the pieces were set up for you to have an impact, buddy. So,
Yep.
um, while we're on that topic, uh, this other thing I wanted you to talk about would be the Harry M. Archer Medal. I think you got that in '93.
Yes.
Separate incident.
Same incident. The Harry M. Archer is every 3 years for the best Gordon Bennett in the past 3 years. So that's for the same thing.
Okay, for the same thing. Okay, cool. All right. Um, well, I just in a like I said, you mentioned before, Mike, and I know what a mentor you are to so many people. And like I said, I keep saying Terry and I have so many conversations about stuff and talk shop. We talked about our mentors before, but and what they mean to us. But if this is going to be a hard one for you, this could be a hard one for you to answer. But try to, if you could pick the top three mentors in your career, your fire service career, or for life, for that matter. You know, if you could, I know it's hard, Mikey, but the top three, if you could pick maybe somewhere close to the top three, and without offending anybody, who would you say your top three mentors are?
Well, got to be first my dad. My dad was a World War II bomber pilot, 65 missions over hostile territory. And, you can't come back from that without being changed. And he was. And my brothers joke all the time how I took the beatings for the three boys because afterwards he didn't want to. And I was not an easy kid in any way, shape, or form. But my old man's favorite line was, "I don't care what you do. I don't care if you work in a gas station, if you're a car mechanic, if you're a garbage man. I don't care what you do, but be the best you can be at it." And he goes, "I don't want you to be a rocket scientist if you hate rocket scientists." My old man works for the American Tobacco Company after World War II and had to smoke to have his job. And he hated going to work. And I can't imagine doing that with six kids and a wife and going to work every day and hating going to work every day. And my old man did that to take care of our family. So he showed me what was good and what was bad. So that's number one. Number two has to be Vinny Dunn. Vinny
Yeah,
Dunn, Vinny Dunn was my division commander. I graduated chauffeur school when Vinny Dunn was there. I took the lieutenant's test when Vinny Dunn was there. I got the Gordon Bennett when Vinny Dunn was there. So one day Vinny Dunn said to me, Here's a guy who was number one in his chauffeur school class, number one in his fire academy class, number one in his police academy class, number one in up on the top. I was in the top 50 on the lieutenant's exam. And he's like, what else can this guy do right? And I was like, wow. So I started writing some stuff. And I wrote a thing about rapid intervention crews for the FDNY. And because I was a fireman, it got put in a circular file cabinet. It got discarded because what the hell does this kid know? Well, Vinny Dunn looked at it and said, this is great. Do you mind if I borrow this and see if I can get it printed? And I said, no, Chief, you can have it. Put your name to it. I don't care. You're Vinny Dunn. He goes, no. I'm going to send this to people. So he sent it to a couple of people and got my first article published. And they came and saw me and said, publish another article. Here's what I want you to write about. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And he was just phenomenal. So he was great. He was great. And then the last one I'm going to pick is your buddy, John Salka, because John Salka gave me my start in teaching hands-on at the at FDIC.
That's how we met.
That's how we met. And
Yeah.
I mean, and I got to say four because you're in there, because I remember meeting you and talking to you. And I don't know if you'll remember this, but saying about some of the tapes I was trying to get a hold of. I got back home and I had given you a business card. And 3 weeks later, a box shows up with 6 tapes. The things I wanted were all taped, set to me on, back in the day, we used VCRs, on VCR tapes, ready to go from you. And I was like, wow, that guy's willing to share all his stuff, everything he has, makes copies for you, everything else. That's somebody I want to be like. And it's amazing. And John gave me my start teaching hands-on. So, I mean, I think the four of you are my mentors.
Well, John loves you. John, you're one of John's favorite people because we talk about you often. And and I just want to, for a disclaimer, um, uh, the VHS tapes I made were not made from copies that had the FBI warning on them that you're not supposed to make copies, which I didn't read about for like 15 years later. But no, those, I know exactly what you're talking about, Mikey. And it's just, but we've all done that. You know, we've all shared. Um, I I always tease Terry about. He's my go-to. I said, I think everybody in the Geek Squad at Best Buy calls him because if I ever have anything going on, it's like anything, whether it's an app, a computer, whatever. I just go. My wife goes, "Will you stop bothering Terry? Poor Terry." I go, "No, I'm telling you, the guy, you just, and if he can't find it, like 5 minutes later, he's texting back with information." But and again, that's the circle of friends we run in, and we take care of each other.
Hey, and
Absolutely.
just so everybody knows, a VCR is a way that we used to exchange information. Uh, but you can Google that, by the way.
Yeah, because they don't make them anymore.
Yeah.
The other one we used, Terry, was the slide trays.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, hey, we could do some. Yeah, put those family vacations in the slide tray.
Yep, yep.
Actually, one of the best parts of my life when Chief worked here, when something went wrong with his computer or iPhone or whatever, and the sheer panic that 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 this rock of a guy, but the sheer panic that comes over him when he looks at something and it's not there anymore or something like that. Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you because in your stories of your mentors, and I always like listening to that, but you are a mentor to a lot of people, whether you accept that, know it, or you don't. But I mean, I think you do, and I think you understand that both probably while you were at the FDNY and even now. But that's a role, and I'll make an assumption you wouldn't take that lightly. But talk a little bit about what that means, especially at this point in your life, that you are that person. You are someone's Vinny Dunn.
It's really rewarding. That is, I look at a picture of my company, Ladder 123, November 7th of 2007. We were 100 years old. We had a centennial. And I look at the picture that we had taken for that centennial, and there were less than 7 guys, 8 guys still in the company. Some of the firemen who are in the company are now battalion chiefs, going to be deputy chiefs in 12 years. They're captains, they're lieutenants, they're in special operations command. Listen, none of us are here for a long time. We're here for a good time. And somebody is going to take your place. So why not train them and tell them the mistakes that you have made and make them a better person and make the department, the company, the firehouse a better place. And I think it's so important that we do this for our brothers and sisters out there. If you can avoid, if you can stop someone from making the same mistake you made, how great is that?
Exactly.
You have you've said two things, and they hit near and dear to me because in a different manner of saying it, but I think it's the same thing. But uh, you've talked about like new guys and the role of someone in that firehouse to make sure that that person is empowered and able to speak up, ask questions, not belittled, set in a corner, and literally afraid to make a decision or do something, and more importantly to speak up because I tell the new guys that start here is that nothing outside of these walls discriminates that you're a new guy. No one cares when you pull up in front of a house. No one cares. Fire doesn't care, and the people out there don't care. So we expect you to be a highly trained and problem solver out there, and you need to act like it. And but there are still those that out there that have that mentality of you don't say anything because you hadn't been here long enough, kind of thing. The other thing that you mentioned before, and that's empowering people to do the right thing. And I think your story about getting out of the ambulance to allow this person to take your place. I think that speaks a lot about you, but probably about what the fire service is to you. And at the end of the day, we're here to make someone else's life better in some way, shape, or form. And what a challenge that is for people who work in an environment that aren't given that latitude by their supervisors to actually go out there and do it that way.
Yeah, I think that's, and the other thing is, listen, your young people, your new people are going to make a mistake. And I tell a story, and I won't give the guy's name, but one of my probies grew up in an Irish Catholic household. His mother used Baraxo on everything. He was a new kid, took some initiative. He was going to clean all the face pieces, and he used Baraxo. Okay. Well, we had 6 of the best smoked out face pieces you can ever have. And I called the mask service unit and I said, listen, I need new face pieces. I borrowed some so the company could stay in service from other companies. You got a spare, you got a spare, you got a spare. And I got enough to get us back in service. Okay. And away we go. And I sent the guy, I said, here they are. You can see them. And he sent it back and said, use them for drill. Okay, fine. But he said, what happened? Then I told him the story. And he said, what did you say to the kid? I said, I like that you're stepping up. I like that you're doing things. But if you're doing something you've never done before, just ask someone, is there anything I should avoid? Okay. And they would have told you, don't use Baraxo because it just, there was nothing left. You couldn't see out of these things. It was hysterical.
Well, and let's walk me back through my kind of change in topics here. We're going to go a few minutes past our hour for those of us that are viewing, because there's so much we want to talk to Mike about. But Mike, you kind of shifted gears a little bit. One of the questions I know I had in my head was to ask you like the 3 most important tasks when arriving at a structure fire. And I know you teach it a lot in a lot of your tactics classes and to a lot of officers and firefighters. But walk that back even further. World Trade Center, February 26, 1993. A bunch of us have seen the video. You being interviewed afterwards. I know a lot of your guys. I know today people would, I understand everything going on with cancer prevention awareness, and I'm all about it too. But I saw your guys, your guys, what 6 dead, 1,042, something like that injured, worked themselves out of air. I mean, there was no going down to get another bottle when you've got 50 something thousand people 110 stories high, and the parking garage, the whole thing. I mean, so um, I just say, what company and who were you with, and what were you thinking when you got there, Mike? I mean, this is something that you and I've talked about 9/11, and I know you were there for that too, and for the weeks and months afterwards. I know it hurt your body, hurt your knees, and everything else. But 1993. I guess my question is, what was going through your head, bud?
Well, I was driving. I was the chauffeur a lot of 43 that day, and it was the first Friday of Lent because I was cooking stuffed flounder for lunch. It was $12 a man in 1993, a lot of money for lunch. And
Yeah.
we got the money back because we didn't get back until 9 o'clock that night. But we were up on 124th Street at a carbon monoxide in a church. And the chief comes in and he says, "Oh, there was something happened at the World Trade Center. They want everybody we don't need to go back in service. 43 truck, you go back in service. 14 truck, our neighboring truck to the north, will handle this box." Okay. So we'll get back on the rig. 43 truck, we're back in service. 43 truck, respond to the World Trade Center. Okay. And my captain looks at me, Jack Culkin, and he says, his famous lines were, "No paint, no problem." That means if I don't scrape anything, he doesn't care how I get there, get me there.
Uh-huh.
I got us down there. I said, "I'll get you right there, Cap. I know right where I'm going." He goes, "Okay." And I wasn't supposed to at the time. I didn't know it, but I went down the FDR Drive. Okay. And I got right to the World Trade Center. We were parked in front. We got out and we had to walk 50 floors. Now, what most people don't realize is February 26, 1993, it was 37 degrees out. Inside the World Trade Center was 72 to 73 degrees. The bomb exploded in the second sub-basement level. The smoke detectors on the 110th floor went off 5 minutes later. That's how much smoke was in there. We made a rescue there of people trapped in an elevator. We went up to the 50th floor, and I didn't realize this at the time. We were working with elevator mechanics, but you can bring an elevator up, but the counterweight is always a little heavier than the elevator car. So you could bring it up. So we were bringing the elevator cars up to the 50th floor and getting the people out. Most have been in there an hour or two. The last car we went to had 10 people in it. They were down near the third floor. The doors to the sub basement in the elevator were blown off. So it was a natural chimney. So these people were stuck in a chimney, and we thought they were dead when we opened it up. It was like a mausoleum. They were all
Covered, right? Weren't they all just?
Yep. And we thought they were dead, and then somebody moaned, and we got them out. We got a lot of people. Again, it's amazing, but Jerry Tracy was up on that floor with me when because they were doing other stuff. Chief DiBernardo, Joe DiBernardo, he was up there. We met up there, and it was just amazing. But my company got these people out, and they all survived. An amazing story.
Well,
But yeah.
So Mikey, okay, so now we walk. I mean, you're there. This is the North World Trade Center tower, right? On February 26, 1993. Now, I mean, through your head, all of a sudden now it's that and a gazillion times worse, if you could even imagine that. I mean, and you're back there in 2001. Um, and I know who New Yorkers are. I know how Chicagoans are. I know how the Chicago guys are very protective of their city. They own their city. That's their city. I don't care from the worst neighborhood to the best neighborhood to the tallest building to the shortest. The guys I know in Chicago are very proud and take it very serious about their town, their city. And I know how you guys are. I remember Jay Jonas when he climbed out. When they finally made it out, he said it was like the ending of the original Planet of the Apes when Charlton Heston comes around, sees the head of the Statue of Liberty, says, "You bastards, you blew it up," and that's the first thing he thought of. It had to be heartbreaking. Not only the loss of all your brothers. I mean, that just we've been on this show before to talk to you about that. But Mikey, to show up and see that had to be just had to break your heart.
The thing that sticks with me more than anything, Rick, very honestly, is walking up The second tower had just come down, and we're walking up there, and I see ladder 113, the Camp Rogers Rats, their rig, and that was part of where I worked. One of the places I worked in, I had assigned firehouses that I go to in my division, and I go there, seeing their rig on fire, and then I'm walking up and I see a landing gear wheel, and next to it is a foot in a high heel, and it's from the ankle down is still in the shoe. And I was like, holy crap, there's somebody who is missing. I mean, this might be all that was left of that person, that
Yeah.
female. I think it was a female just because, but that's neither here nor there. But that person, that was, I mean, I was probably 2, 3 blocks away, and there was somebody's foot. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, it's unreal. It's still unreal.
And to lose all your family, your brothers like that, and I know cops and Port Authority. I mean, so many people. A lot of guys forget that you know guys from the FDNY did just know the FDNY guys. They knew so many people,
Oh,
people that worked, everything else in the area. Just and it was one of the things before we get too far. And Terry and I are big into families. Terry's got a great son and daughter, and I know how he is as a dad. He's a great dad, and I like to consider myself a pretty good father as well for my son and daughter. But a lot of guys and gals in the fire service, Mikey, they can't. I think they have a hard time balancing work and home. It's so easy to fall in love with the job, to fall in love with being a firefighter. I know after 9/11, and forgive me, I don't remember which daughter, but I remember every night
Emily.
you put her to bed. There was a I think it was a hanky that you kissed, and that you had to go on her pillow, or I mean, just and I know you're a huge family man. If you could give advice to some of our viewers, Mikey, about balancing um, work and home, you know what I'm saying? I think some people just sometimes I think they need more people like yourself to say, look, these are some of the points I could give you on how to do that.
You listen, being a dad, you got to take a test to be a fireman. You got to take a test to be a driver. You got to take a test to be a lieutenant, a captain, whatever it is. You don't have to take a test to be a dad, but that is the hardest job you will ever have, being a husband or a wife and a mom or a dad to a child. And especially when you do what we do, when you work, when you are away, when people, I mean, are getting killed on highways, when everything else, you have to make sure that you spend time with these people because they are the most important thing in your world. Because when you get old and you have to retire like I did, okay, they're what's going to be there to support you. They're what's going to be there. And my joke is sons and daughters. You both have sons and daughters. Treat your sons right because they pay for your nursing home. Treat your daughters right because they pick it out.
Well, and I'll never forget. Someone asked my buddy John at FDIC in the big room, what advice would if he could do it all over again, what would he do? And he goes, I'd spend more time with my family. And he's a great dad, but it just, like you said, your daughters are growing up, and you can all the thoughts and memories you had when they were little, and it flies by. And I wish I could go back and crawl around the floor and play GI Joes with my son again, and play Barbies with my daughter. Yes, I played Barbies, not naked Barbies, but I played Barbies. Um, you know, and uh,
Oh,
and make that happen.
I remember being pretty princess with lipstick, earrings, the whole 9 yards. Oh yeah,
The
and
crown, the ring. I love that game.
a whole thing. And listen, it takes a real man to be able to do that. But
Pretty
I
Pretty
will say
Little
one thing,
Princess.
Rick. One thing that I like to tell all of our young viewers, if I had to go back and do it all over again, the one thing I wish I had done is started a journal. I wish I had written a notebook. And I also wish I had taken more pictures. And I'm not talking about the stupid pictures on somebody's front lawn when the house is burning down. Afterwards, back at the firehouse, even outside, around the rig, after the fire, take a picture. Do you remember Mike? Do you remember Rick? Do you remember Terry? Oh, yeah. Where is he now? Oh, he retired. He moved out to Montana. He's there. He's here. But remember the brothers and sisters that you worked with. If I had anything I could do over, I would start a journal and keep a record of what I did.
I
And
love that. I wish I could have. I
now
agree.
the iPhone and all of this talk to text stuff, it's simple. That's what I wish I had done.
Me too, buddy. Me too. Terry, I know you got something, bud.
Yeah, no, I was when you said that starting a journal, and I'm telling you, I've thought about that so many times in my life. I just and I try to tell my kids today, you should take a picture a day. It's easy, doesn't cost you anything. Put it up and store it somewhere, but when it comes to this job, and you're right, it's not, it's just uh the opportunity is there for so many people in today's time with today's technology, that I think when they get to that point in their career when they're retired, I think wow, that would be such a valuable little archive of history to have.
Yep. I agree wholeheartedly, brother. I agree wholeheartedly. I wish I had done it. I do have a lot of pictures, but I wish I had more.
Me too. Me too. Mikey, we always and Terry, we're going to kind of switch off with these or whatever, but we always have questions for our guests before we part ways at the end of the show. And I guess one of them would be, uh, what advice would Captain Mike Dugan have for the probie? You're back on the floor, you got your new firefighter, or you're at a class. You do it all the time now when these young guys and gals come up to you and you can steal a moment with them. What would you say to that new firefighter, to that probie?
Again, I would say start a journal. And then I would say every tour, every day, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're paid on call, whether you're career, whatever you are, every day give the fire service a little time. If you're in a career job where you're working 24 hours, give the fire service 2 hours. Read about something, read a study, go on YouTube and look at things, how to cut a roof, whatever. Study, train, get good. That would be number one. Number two is always protect yourself. We didn't know as much as we do now about cancer when I was coming up. I remember being yelled at for wearing a mask and an oil burner. We don't wear these things, kid. We don't want to be a sissy. Wear your mask, wear your protective equipment, clean up. Dirty gear, and we used to want it to be salty, look like a tough son of a gun. Dirty gear is cancer, okay? And very honestly, you don't want somebody else taking care of you when you're old and gray. You don't want somebody else. And protect yourself. Protect yourself, protect your family, because those are the things that I think are most important. For the officers out there, make your people do it. We're taking a half an hour. Everybody's going back and taking a shower. I mean, I used to work with guys. We used to call them, one guy I worked with was Dirty. I won't tell you his name, but we used to call him Dirty. And the joke used to be he was a GQ model before he started cheating and not wearing his face boost, and he came out looking like the creature from the Black Lagoon. Take a shower. Clean yourself up. Look, you don't want to get this stuff. You don't want cancer. It's not fun.
Well, I can't agree with you more, Terry. And I've talked about it. We're very big advocates for reminding guys. I mean, I was same thing. I grew up with a bunch of cave people that I love, but if you wore your face piece, they wouldn't let you go in the next fire with them. And um, it's nowadays we're not burning the same stuff they did in the 50s. So it's time to be smart and it's time to be a good boss. And like you said, take care of your people. And I like you said it. There's a lot of very brave people that weren't being sissies that are fighting cancer right now that are going through chemo. So there you go. I'd rather be the one that wore my face piece and live long enough to celebrate lives with Sarah and Emily, and my wife or husband and make for it. So, Mikey, if they wanted to get a hold of you, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, I know you do teaching all over North America and beyond. If they wanted to get a hold of Mike Dugan to come out and do a program, conference or whatever, is email the best for them to get a hold of you?
Email's the best.
Okay, what would that be?
It's Dugan, like my last name, Dugan, fire, FIRE, at AOL.com. Yes, it's old, but I started with it and I used it. I keep it because I've had it for so long.
I tease
Uh,
Salk. I said that's the AOL stands for the Antique Online, and he gives me crap all the time. But and I'm looking at Terry. I know Terry. He loves.
I just told Chief it was probably last week or the week before, and I said, you know what, it does my heart good at the end of your shows when Chief Salka says at Gmail. I said, man, he finally took a step, boy.
Terry, any parting thoughts, buddy? Before we, I know you got to go to City Hall.
No, I'm headed out to a meeting, but I do want to say, Captain Dugan, it's been an honor and a privilege for me, and I meant what I said earlier today, and although I've never met you, I have a pretty good idea of the kind of person you are, and I appreciate your service. I appreciate your continued service, and you know, I honestly feel with the number of lives that you touch, the number of people that look to you in the various formats out there for advice and education and things like that your outreach now and the message you spread now is as important as anything you've probably done in your life. Because I think the one thing that people in your position, Chief Lasky's position, is that you can't measure what doesn't happen, and the stuff that you guys are doing out there making people better at this profession and this career. It's hard to measure the true impact that you are having because uh, you know because of what you're doing, people aren't getting hurt or God forbid getting killed and things like that. So I appreciate what you do, appreciate what you've done, and this has been a great hour for me.
Well, and I couldn't have said it any better, Mikey. Terry hit it right there. I love you. You know how much I love you, and I mean that with all my heart. I love you. Not just when people say they love someone. I love you like a brother, and you've been such a great friend and confidant all these years. I can't thank you enough. I mean, and for our listeners, you need to get your young guys to sit down and your older guys and listen to this show because Terry and I very much wanted to take an hour-ish and celebrate the storied career of Captain Mike Dugan because uh, Mike, you're incredible, and we wanted to do some bragging on you. We wanted to get some stories out and some information from Captain Dugan. You have and you will always be changing the lives in the fire service. I can't thank you enough, brother, for coming on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. To all the brothers and sisters out there, thank you. Be safe and God bless.
Oh, awesome. Mike, hang in there for a second, buddy, till we sign off. Hey, again, it's duganfire@aol.com if you want to get a hold of Mike to come out and teach. Terry and I are all over Facebook and Twitter and the web. So if you need to get a hold of us or Captain Dugan, I know he's on Facebook as well and Twitter and everything else. Just head over to those sites. Our next show date for Terry and I, we have the third Wednesday of every month, Humpday Hangout. We February 19th, my daughter Emily's birthday, Mike, my Emily. Fire engineering always.
February 9th.
What's that?
My Emily is February 9th.
Oh, you know what? I remember the closest because we've always talked about our two Emilys. So, fire engineering always has some great hangouts Wednesdays at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, folks, with some awesome people. And in closing, Terry and I always ask you to please keep the men and women and our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, especially with Captain Dugan here today, never forgetting means never forgetting. Be safe. God bless you. And thank you for listening.